Your party arrives at the edge of the Tuga forest, unique in the Undermountain in its size and sheer variety of fungi. As the party head to their rooms in the Happy Toadstool, the last inn before delving into the forest, their thoughts idly wander what awaits them in the depths of Tuga. Hello and welcome! Today we'll be delving into the earthly smelling world of fungi, covering how fungi and superficially mushrooms have appeared in media, some of the stranger traits that exist in the fungal world, and how you can take these to craft a living world in which your story can take place. In the 1867 Journey to the Centre of the Earth by Jules Verne, the explorers find a forest of giant mushrooms. There they marvel at the size of the mushrooms before making a raft and sailing out into sea. Not much is really explored in this forest, other than the mushrooms being large and very sturdy. What we have though is one of the first instances of an underground mushroom forest. Nowadays, we see such a forest as a standard fantasy trope. This may very well be the inspiration for dozens of similar giant mushroom forests, such as those found in games such as Terraria, Minecraft, and Elder Scrolls. So why is it that we continue to be astounded by mushrooms and other fungi? Well, it might come down to how alien they are. I'm not going to provide an in-depth breakdown of parts of fungi. Instead, I'll stick to broad concepts that we can use for our worlds and narratives. As I run through these fungal traits, remember that these are true for at least some fungi. We have not even started to add our own narrative twist. First, fungi can operate as single parts or a whole. Mycelium is a root-like structure that can form fruiting bodies, or as us lay people know them, mushrooms. Some mycelium can even form a mycorrhizal network that links fungi and plants as a sort of communications network. Are the facts of the mycorrhizal network disputed? Sure, but let's say they're true. When you separate a mycelium in half, you get two mycelium. These mycelium can grow to enormous size. The largest known living organism in the world is nicknamed the humongous fungus, a single organism that covers 9.1 square kilometers or 3.5 square miles, and could be up to 8,000 years old, weighing a whopping 35,000 tons. To put it into perspective, the largest animal is the blue whale, weighs around 200 tons. Second, fungi grow inside their food source, whether that be plant material such as leaf litter and wood, or even animals. In real life, not fiction, species of cordyceps grow inside ants and spiders. They can even take control of the body and move it somewhere more suited for its proliferation. If this sounds familiar, the game and TV series Last of Us ratchets this up to 11 for their fungal infected. If you'd like to see a much earlier version of infected mushroom people, check out the 1963 Japanese movie Mantango, Attack of the Mushroom People. Third, fungi can employ a large variety of biological effects, similar to those from both animal and plant kingdoms. The veiled lady mushroom grows the lattice skirt of sorts that exudes a rotting smell to attract insects and spread spores. Mushrooms are known for a huge array of drug and poison effects, such as hallucinations and euphoria. This is normally only through ingestion, but let's not limit ourselves to that. Some utilize projectile displacement of spores, such as the nicknamed dung cannon that grows on, well, dung. It creates small sacs filled with fluid and builds up pressure until it squirts the contents at the same speed as a rifle. Others can produce clouds of spores when disrupted, such as puffballs. Now let's get to the juicy part, building some fantastical mushrooms built on some of these real-life facts. As I mentioned before, in Journey to the Centre of the Earth, the explorers find a mushroom forest. Given what we know above, let's make it much weirder. To recap, the things we're drawing upon are a giant fungal organism that links separate fungi together, the ability for fungus to attract and repel with odours, and the ability for fungus to grow in and control other things. Next, let's use some of those keywords to help us stick to a cohesive theme. I want this location to be strange for people to experience, either as players or readers. Some great evocative words are alien, slimy, fungal, decay, moist, claustrophobic, and pungent. Now, some of the mechanics for our fungal forest. First off, let's make the entire thing linked via a mycorrhizal network. When one mushroom is damaged, all the rest become aware. Some fungi will not react, for example, where a fruiting body is designed to attract creatures or be eaten. Second, let's add in creatures that are attracted to fungal blooms and fruiting bodies such as large insects, rodents, and bats. That way, the forest can create food sources and various smells to move animals around, or even enrage them. As another defensive measure, let's add in that mushrooms can release spores that can disorientate creatures. Third, if we think of the mycelium network as a neural network, at the center of the forest is the central mycelium spike, sort of like a supercomputer collecting and transmitting impulses. Using the ability for fungus to grow inside food, this central spike could have absorbed humans, keeping key organs alive, allowing it to see and speak. This alien intelligence would have existed for thousands of years, recalling events far predating knowledge of any who visit it. Okay, we've got all the bits and pieces, let's add a narrative. We hired a local guide to lead us through the forest. Mug was his name, a sour-smelling man with only a few teeth and a stump where his left hand should have been. Despite my concerns, we were assured that he was the best man for the job. The first few days of travel through the forest was uneventful. Mug warned us where to step and where not. On the third night, he collected some foul-smelling red fungus for dinner. Although it smelt like rotting meat, it tasted like pork. Day 8. Things have gone terribly. Phillips apparently went out to pee during our rest, and went much further than Mug had warned us to stay within. The fool of a shy urinator apparently peed on something he shouldn't have. We awoke to screams and a thick cloud of spores falling across camp. There were things in the clouds, terrors that I could only half see. I remember grabbing my bag and journal in fright and running. Mug was shouting something. I think now he was trying to stop us from running, but his words fell on panicked ears. Before I knew it, I was alone, terribly lost and with only a tiny amount of provisions in my bag. I did find Phillips, though. He'd apparently run in the same direction as I, but his panic, he had run into a sort of fungal lattice thing covered with sickly slime. Perhaps it was toxic, perhaps it was the insects that killed him. He was certainly dead. I dared not free him from his final injustice, lest I suffer the same fate as he. I left him with his pants still around his ankles. Day 31, I've been told. Truthfully, I've lost all sense of time, but apparently 13 days had passed. I followed a smell that seemed like fresh, baked bread. It led me to a massive mushroom. Ancient it must have been, and bigger than the tallest tower from my home. So desperate, I crawled through one of the holes in its trunk, following the scent. I found something alien. A room of sorts with all manner of creatures fused to the walls and floor. The smell that was coming from the loaf of bread held by the hand out by what I assume used to be a man. I took it and ate it, not caring if this was some delusion of hunger's torment. I remember the taste, and the blissful sleep that followed. When I awoke, it felt an odd sense of calm, similar to the ethers that the doctors use to numb pain. Did not feel even a thread of fear, as dozens of bodies, those that were human at least, started to speak. I had a conversation with them. I answered freely, as if the words of truth flowed, and like a child I had no ability to lie. I spoke of my home, my loves, how I was travelling through the forest, and of the wonder I felt at seeing it. I spoke until sleep took me again. When my memories next returned, I was walking with purpose. My body felt stronger, hunger sated, and even well rested. I heard a shout. It was Little Hill, followed by another from Barnaby. Somehow I had found the rest of my travelling companions. I learned from them that Phillips, Lily, and Fry had either died or disappeared that night. But somehow I had survived. Not only that, I had managed to catch up to them. Mug seemed most shocked at my story. Also at what I had in my bag. 2 loaves of that mysterious bread, still fresh, though I had obviously eaten half of one. I told them of what I had seen, but none of them believed me. Perhaps it had been a fevered dream of delirium? But what of the bread? Had I simply chanced upon some forsaken adventurer's belongings? Even I started to doubt my recollection as the hours ticked on. What had happened to me? That is where we leave the group traversing the mushroom forest. Through that small story, I added in some of the aspects of our forest. Ill-fated Phillips accidentally sets off one of the mushroom forest defences, causing a cloud of spores to move over the camp, causing hallucinations. Phillips runs into a giant version of the veiled mushroom and dies, either due to the toxic liquid or the insects feeding upon it. The journalist gets lost, but is attracted to the curious mushroom mind at the centre of the forest by the smell of bread. There, the mind drugs him to ensure its own safety and so that it can question him. Finding him no threat, in an act of mercy, it guides him back to the rest of his companions. How did it make the bread? Well, I like to think that the hand that the piece of bread was sitting on was someone who knew how to bake bread. The mind then created something fairly similar. That would also be why it chose to attract him with the best smell it could think of, freshly baked bread. Obviously we could have gone for a much darker route, or I could have spent a lot more time talking about the earthy smells, constant humidity and biting insects. But for now, I think we'll leave it there. That wraps up this episode of GMspiration. Thanks for listening, and remember to have fun.